well.
Yeah.
But before we begin, for any new listeners or viewers we have, could you say a few words about the impact that St. Thomas Aquinas personally had on you and his thought on your development, becoming a priest and later a bishop?
Yeah, it was massive. Of course, I started off on the path toward the priesthood really because of Aquinas and his arguments for God's existence, which had a huge impact on me when I was a teenager. And then, it was a happy grace, I would say, as I was drawn into the Thomistic world, even as a young man. And that means a world of great balance, of great sanity. And it was a gift because I didn't know anything about philosophy. He was my entree into philosophy, and what a happy door to enter. You think of people who begin their philosophical career, let's say, by reading, Nietzsche or by reading Sartre or reading postmoderns. That's going to take you a very different place than reading Aquinas and Aristotle and his forebears. So that was a grace in my life, and from that time onward, now I'm an old man, and I am still very much beholden to the Thomistic world.
And one of the most remarkable parts of that story for me is that there was a time in Catholic education when young teens were expected to read St. Thomas Aquinas.
Well, and I'll say to the great credit of a teacher I had at Fenwick High School, though that was not typical of that time. I mean, as I've complained about banners and balloons, Catholicism, that's what you found mostly. And I do think it was a grace that I happened after, recess one day, all these sweaty boys are in the religion class, and this young friar taught us a little bit of Aquinas. And for me, it was like, an earthquake.
So let's turn now to looking at some of the major themes of the paper that you gave in Rome on St. Thomas Aquinas' conception of God and how that relates to his conception of the social and political good. Before we get into some of those specific arguments, however, what would you respond to someone who hears the word St. Thomas Aquinas, hears medieval philosophy, and they say something like, Bishop, our world is in social turmoil right now, dominated by conflict. We've totally lost all sort of common moral ground. Why in the world would we spend time thinking about a medieval philosopher who lived 800 years ago and wrote in Latin?
Yeah, because we're not imprisoned by someone's sociological setting or skin color or educational background. If someone's speaking truth, they're speaking truth. Can someone speak to us still from the 13th century? Well, why not? If human nature remains basically the same and a great genius is analyzing it, it's like saying, why read Shakespeare? Because haven't we moved on from Shakespeare? Well, quite frankly, no, we haven't, because Shakespeare saw things that were so deep and permanent in the human condition. Same with Aquinas. That's why it used to annoy me when the new atheists would say things like, the Bible, Bronze Age mythology. Well, I mean, why are we judging the truth of a text from its age? Then we wouldn't read anybody before the scientific period. Might there be certain truths about God, about nature, the world, society, and humanity that are simply perennial? And when great geniuses like the prophet Isaiah and Aristotle and Thomas Aquinas and Shakespeare see those things, well, I mean, we can't unsee them. We shouldn't unsee them. So, no, I think that's just a silly objection. You hear it, though. You're right.
You hear it a lot, including in universities.
Oh, yeah, especially there, sadly.
Yeah. So what do you say to the general principle that the present has a greater claim on our attention, including our moral attention, precisely because it is the present?
Well, that's silly. No, I mean, that's a presentism. That's a prejudice. We have to engage the present world. That's the world that we're in. And so it's not up to us to decide, the time we're given. It's given to us. So sure, we engage it, but we engage it in light of these great geniuses who came before us.
So moving back into the content of your paper now, you write towards the beginning, and I'll quote here: "With Thomas Aquinas, metaphysics comes first and ethics follows." Metaphysics comes first and ethics follow. Before we move deeper into your argument, could you say a few words about what metaphysics means, what ethics means, and the kind of relationship you're seeking to establish between them up front?
Yeah, I'm meaning it here, what asks and seeks to answer the deepest questions about the nature of being, you might say, is metaphysics. The study of being qua being is a classical definition. So I can study you from a chemical standpoint, a biological standpoint, a sociological, psychological standpoint, or I could study you in the measure that you're a being. So what's true of you in the measure that you exist? That's what metaphysics is looking for. So it's the articulation of the most fundamental principles about the nature of the real. And the argument there is that anything we say about politics or about ethics or about anything is predicated finally upon your perception of what's really real or ultimately real. That's why metaphysics comes first.